Hello again. One of the reasons I prefer to rely on books for information about the past is that unlike websites and much other information online, they cannot be altered or amended. What's printed on a paper page endures. I suspect that many viewers will have noticed that information online is constantly being monkeyed around with, that figures are updated, things deleted. You can find something one day and it will disappear the next. This is not precisely censorship. It happens automatically. People are editing things, they correct inaccuracies, and they remove stuff which might seem embarrassing or irrelevant. The result is that when you're online, sometimes you feel as though you're living in a constant present. You can't look at something from 50 years ago and be sure that that's what it was, if you see what I mean. I was thinking in this way when looking at this book. It was written 50 years ago, and it addresses the needs of elderly people in an industrial society, namely this one, Britain. Before looking at it, and I want to look at one or two passages from it, I thought it would help to explain that one of the chief reasons cited these days for our supposedly needing to import millions of people from Africa and Asia is the so-called aging population. Now, this is not a new phrase, nor is it a modern concern. This book was published by the Open University in 1978, and it is titled An Aging Population. As the myth is now propagated, there are so many retired people in this country that there are simply not enough folk of working age to support them, pay enough taxes, that is, to pay their pensions and to work in the care homes to take care of them. The proportion of old retired people to working people is now so high that we must bring in more young, able-bodied people from third world nations so that they can work and pay taxes and thus support the aging population. I don't suppose any of this is new to any viewer. So often has this narrative been repeated over the years that many people have come to believe that it is true. Surely, if it were not so, then somebody would have noticed and pointed out any errors or inconsistencies. The difficulty is, you see, that people who point out errors in that way and tell people that they are being taken for a lot of mugs do tend to be rather unpopular. No one likes having their illusions shattered, as I know to my cost. And a lot of us, although we know that all the stuff about the aging population is nonsense, feel that it's less trouble to let people carry on believing it, even though it is manifestly false. However, as a man who has in the past been unpopular for thinking the unthinkable and speaking the unspeakable, I thought that I had little to lose by exploding this popular myth, which only takes about 5 minutes. Let me give two figures which indicate the supposed crisis which we currently face and has necessitated so much immigration to make up for our aging population. The first is from a website at the University of Cambridge and can easily be matched elsewhere. That is to say that the figure it gives is a fairly standard one. Click the link which I give, the first link, and you will read, today, those aged 60 and over make up slightly more than 1 in 5 of the UK population. This was 2 years ago. Now click on the second link, which is to the government's own website and is the State Pension Age Review in 2023. We read, and I quote, There were 280 pensioners for every 1,000 people of working age as of 2020. This gives us the context for the frantic need for immigration to counter the rising proportion of old and economically inactive people in Britain. This is, in other words, the rationale behind much of the immigration we have seen in recent years. We need these people because of our ageing population. Now let's look at this book. It was published by the Open University, and it is a collection of papers and essays, articles written in the 1970s about Britain's ageing population. It's called An Ageing Population, edited by Vida Carver and Penny Lydiard. It was 325 at the time. So I say it was published in 1978, and it's an Open University set book, the course that they were running at that time on the ageing population. We need only read the blurb on the back page to see something very odd. Let me read it out. At the beginning of this century, approximately 7% of the population was aged 60 or more. Today, the proportion is 20%. I wonder if viewers can read that for themselves there. Hmm. 20% of the British population over the age of 60, eh? 50 years ago. That's about 1 in 5. Hang on a moment. Haven't we seen that figure elsewhere? Why, that's right. It is the same figure quoted by Cambridge University a couple of years ago. Here we are. Today, those aged 60 and over make up slightly more than 1 in 5 of the UK population. Yes, 1 in 5, 20%. It's the same. In other words, the proportion of the British population over the age of 60 has not changed in 50 years. Now I turn to page 36. I'm looking at a table here which is showing, as they put it, elderly persons per 1,000 population of working age. And I see here that in 1971 there were 267 elderly people per 1,000 population of working age. I don't know if readers can see this, or viewers, I should say, can see this. This is not a satisfactory way of showing things, I'm aware of it. And they project forward until the time when this book was being read in the late 1970s, and they say that at that time there were 280 elderly persons per 1,000 population of working age. Again, this rings a bell. We turn back to the 2023 State Pension Review and find that there were 280 pensioners for every 1,000 people of working age in 2020. There is something very odd going on here. Assuming that we can rely on the figures quoted in this book, and it is a meticulously referenced academic work, then this indicates that the ageing population is the same now as it was 50 years ago. Nothing has changed. I've scoured this book for any sign of panic about the ageing population, but there is no mention of needing to increase immigration to deal with a situation where there are 280 old people per 1,000 of working age. There's plenty about improving services for the elderly and new ideas on the subject, but it's certainly not viewed as an emergency. It looks to me as though there are no more old people now than there were 50 years ago, and nobody at that time thought that there was any kind of crisis. I'm strongly of the impression that it's a scam, worked up fear which is being used to justify mass immigration. Why anybody should wish to do this, I could not say, but that's certainly what it looks like.